Well, today is August 16th, 2025. Uh, I'm approaching, I'm sure of it, my last journal entries. I don't know, maybe not, but the foreboding, looming dark cloud overhead, politically and sociologically and economically, is definitely making an impact on me. I'm just going to show you my my advisors, you might say, people whose opinions I value most, are really up here on my on my screen right now, on my TV. You got Trump panics as cognitive issues surface at worst, and in this broadcast, which I'm going to watch from Midas Touch, they're talking about how he's coming off the jet and on the red carpet, and he's zigzagging back and forth like a person suffering from dizziness. And then I got Richard Wolff, and I got Jeffrey Sachs, and then down at the bottom there's a few things from Richard Wolff, an economist who I've mentioned before because I started listening to him on the radio. But I did a search, and I listened to a lot of what he says lately. And then Jeffrey Sachs, I've also talked about him, But I haven't listened to either one of any of these three broadcasts that are up here, which I am going to listen to. But, I did a lot of work yesterday, and so by the time it started raining out and darkness set in, I could hardly bear the pain in my lower back. This is something that I haven't ever really experienced to this degree. But, it's penetrating. I had to stay in the fetal position for, all night long. And just to make the pain subside. And, I took ibuprofen, and I didn't drink any beer, which is a pain reliever, but, you can't, I don't think you're supposed to take ibuprofen if you're drinking beer. Well, last time I went to the doctor, I asked about that. And he said, well, you just can't do it all the time. So anyway, look, Richard Wolff, and the last broadcast that I've been seeing him put out, I mean, he's making the point that the American empire is he's a stronger word than declining. Can't remember what word he uses, but he basically says, it's over. They're writing on the wall. Look, okay, and he's not the only economist that says so. All right, he makes. He's a scholar. He's no bullshit. I mean, this is not propaganda. All right. For example, we have a North America trade agreement, NATO, I think that was started by President Clinton. And then we have what's called G7. And G7 is the countries that have made an alliance together, like, you know, the United States and, Britain, England, you know, and like Israel, and I think I don't know, Canada and Mexico, you know, our closest countries. And I don't know. I think that, well, G7 means there's 7 of them. All right. And then you have BRICS, which is a response to G7, and that is like China and Asia and some other ones. Okay. But, you know, Asia and even China used to be considered like third world countries. But now, you see, when you have to understand that the United States, for example, is only 4.5% of the world population. And China and Asia, well, China, just the Republic of China, all right, they're communists, but they have risen from the ashes. And they're, they talk about like GDP and IFM or something like that. Anyway, what that is, their money and their progress and their industry and their technology. Okay, and Trump is putting out all these tariffs and stuff like that. Well, the fact is, see, our 2 biggest debtors, we owe Japan and China, and every amount of tax money that we pay as American citizens, they take that money, they take a portion of that, and they pay off our debt to Japan and China. And Trump is trying to put these tariffs out. He's saying that all these countries are giving us money, but no, that ain't the way it works. All right, the American people are paying the tariffs. All right, that's a tax. And that's why we broke off from England, is because of the tyranny and the taxation like that. And now the working force of America, which is like 97% of America, and there's only 3% which are employers, well, we're paying the taxes, all right? And the other countries, they're saying, okay, well, you're going to put these tariffs on our trade, and you're going to make it harder for us to import stuff to America. Well, we're just going to find another customer. And so now BRICS, which is the alliance of the majority of the world, is taking a stand against America. And America's got a very bad reputation for plots that are done in darkness. All right, and everything that we got involved in, like Richard Wolff points out thoroughly. All right, the wars that we've involved ourselves in, like Vietnam War, the war in Afghanistan, war in Iraq, and now our support for Ukraine, because we wanted to put missile sites on the border of Ukraine to protect against like Russian power. And Russia has had an agreement a long time ago. Jeffrey Sachs points this out, And when I've listened to Putin talk, he points this out, that Ukraine, uh, being the handmaid uh, of the British and English United States, and now United States, a lot of United States don't want to involve themselves in the support of Ukraine anymore, and Russia is just steamrolling, and they're gonna they legally and through strength, they're going to take the border of Ukraine, if not all of Ukraine, and so Trump and Putin, met, and Putin just he he just rolled right over Trump, and he told Trump the way it's going to be. And I understand that Putin has got the goods on Trump, and Trump is a Putin puppet. All right, but there's so many things done in darkness, so many things at work behind the scenes that that we're not privy to, and that's what gives America a bad reputation, covert because that's the word I was trying to think of before, because of these covert plots and stuff, that how we try to do things militarily, to like be the world empire, so to speak, like to our interests, and so it's backfiring now. And so we're in deep kimchi, and I don't believe that we're any longer going to be considered like a beacon or a city or a light set on a hill, like a beacon for freedom. BRICS is going to take us out. They're going to squeeze us out, and there's now what's going on is a redistribution of the wealth and to the hands of the 3%, the rich. And I believe, based on what I've been observing and listening to and educating myself, from the experts and people that actually know what's going on, we're heading for another recession. And the poor are going to get poorer, and the rich are going to get richer. And just like in the last recession, people are going to lose their houses, they're going to lose their jobs, they're going to lose their livelihood, they're going to lose everything, and it's going to go back to the banks and to the rich. And even the well, I forget what it's called, but the guarantee, like your money in the bank and stuff, it's like a governmental guarantee. Well, basically, what that is that's the money is in the hands of the 3%, okay, the richest. It's like, we might have had a hope if Bernie Sanders would have become president, because Bernie Sanders talks all about that. But so many people in politics that are beholden to these corporate conglomerates, and the game, the rules of the game are fixed, and they're not in the favor of the working class. Anyway, I got a bad feeling, about our future, and the writing is on the wall, according to Richard Wolff and Jeffrey Sachs. He's like an encyclopedia of knowledge. Well, he says much darker truth, It's much worse than you can imagine. Professor Jeffrey Sachs. 5 hours ago. So, you know, look, I've seen the pictures of the suffering in Gaza. And the blood is on American hands. And Israel, of course, you know, but whatever. I don't want to go into all that. I'm just saying that from my perspective right now, the government is being, like under Trump especially, I mean, is doing Trump's bidding, and Trump is for the rich people. And, you know, he lies. And the biggest lie that's been swallowed has been by the Christian community, all right? It's ironic. But, you know, President Trump right now is just wiping his ass with the Constitution of the United States. He's wiping his ass with it. It's amazing. But it's true. And, you know, it's like, see, I remember, you know, President Nixon saying, I mean, like, when he resigned, you know, during the Watergate trials and stuff like that. I remember my grandpa watching the Watergate trials, but it is probably from, you know, documentaries and stuff that I heard actually President Nixon, you know, saying that if the president does it, it's not illegal because the president has impunity. You know, he can order, like, say, for example, SEAL Team 6 or somebody to go in and murder Jeffrey Epstein to keep the secret disclosed. And if anybody gets caught, you know, he'll just pardon them. But he can order a crime and get away with it. That's a big flaw in our United States Constitution right there. I can't believe they're so stupid to put that kind of power in the hands of one man. That's, I guess, what you get when you think the best of people, you know. You know, Ronald Reagan said, you know, trust and verify. But like I said before, you know, in my talks, in one of my talks at least, I remember saying that it's not good enough. Trusting and verifying is not good enough. You can't verify everything. And if there's one thing that I've learned in life, it's that anybody can be bamboozled. And our whole American society, you know, can be bamboozled by the media. It's sleight of hand. I mean, you know, we get preoccupied and, you know, maybe like what's going on with Trump or the Democrats or the Republicans. And that's sleight of hand because that's not really where the big decisions are being made, or, you know, it keeps America, you know, like, it's kind of like it's like a choreographed, like WWE, or yeah, WWE, the wrestling, you know, it's all choreographed, you know, looks real, but it's just choreographed. And people point this out, and the only hope that I heard, like, I was listening to, I don't know, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I listened to this other broadcast, and they're saying that the only hope that we have is in this generation now, you know. It's like I said before, you know, the world has unfolded before me, and I know it's unfolded before you. That is, okay, so now the only hope we have is for everybody to speak up. Everybody, because that's the only thing that, you know, the oligarchs and stuff like that are afraid of is mass population. Okay? It's like the slaves, man, in Egypt or something, you know. You had a lot of Egyptian slaves, you know. the Hebrews. and you know, it's only when they gather together and say enough is enough that things will change. And I don't know if the rest of the world is going to be so forgiving to America, because we've done a lot of bad stuff. Like Jeffrey Sachs, in one of the last talks I listened to him talking, he was talking about my phone's gonna die. He's talking about John F. Kennedy's assassination, and that was because John F. Kennedy was actually trying to promote peace. Right? And I think consensus is now that the CIA assassinated him. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I know my phone's gonna die pretty soon, but you know, we got the whistleblowers saying how that America has basically been being spied on by the government, and the military, all the stuff that they can do, and things don't look good. Yeah. I'm just gonna call this one "Things Don't Look Good" and leave it at that. I hope for you, my grandchildren, that things get better, but it really doesn't look like we got much hope left. Yeah, like I told my buddy Tim, I feel like, we're no longer the city set on a hill like a shining light. We're like the butt end of a cigarette. It's going to be stamped underfoot with prejudice and for good reason, and with finality. I hope we have some kind of redeeming factor that maybe, we can be come to service for the rest of the world. But with the greed of politicians and the greed of the oligarchs and people with all the money, I just don't know if there's much hope left. All right, bye.